Hey, what's up guys? So today we're going to be talking about the finale for the Amazing Spider-Man comic event that's happening right now. I will be outright talking about the comic, so if you haven't read the story and you want to read it and know what happens before you hear me talk about it, then probably do so right now. Otherwise, if you just want to follow along the story through my videos, then hey, I can't stop you. But without waiting any further, let's jump into this comic. So the story begins with Chasm and Hallows' Eve. It definitely paints a picture over how Chasm has taken over New York, and Hallows' Eve is wondering, hey, what do we do next? Chasm responds with, I know this usually happens after the war is over, but hey, what the heck? Let's give them a parade. And then we cut over to a group of heroes, with Madelyne Pryor included. We begin with her saying, Chasm stole the Scythe of Sorrows, and with it my throne. He's mine. And Spider-Man stands up and he's like, I'm sorry, didn't you help get us into this mess? Ben wants me and I'm gonna give him just what he wants. And then we cut over to Jean and Cyclops. Jean asks Cyclops, you gonna wade into this? And he responds with, not a chance. But we continue back with the argument. You do not want to be on my bad side, Spider-Man. And he responds with, are you saying we're not on your bad side? What side are we currently on, Madelyne? Because it seems pretty bad. And she says, Limbo is a wilderness of pain. I won't apologize because your world saw a small fraction of it, but believe that I am trying to help you now. Your clone is 10 times stronger than the last time he beat you. What makes you think you can win now? And Spider-Man responds with, because he hates me so much, makes him stupid. Or did you think his plan to take me to Limbo and feed me fruit was evil genius stuff? She sort of sits there pondering, you have a point. Spider-Man continues, if you say we're on the same team now, I can accept that, but I have to do this. Rick Rapp behind him's like, with me, Rick Rapp, his other web guy. Spider-Man's like, sure. Jonah's also behind him and he's like, and where? Spider-Man says, going home. Oh, thank God. Of course, Jonah's just relieved to go back home. As would anyone, to be honest, if your bed was trying to do you. Madelyne responds with, Chasm leads an army of backstabbing demons. I suppose I can busy myself showing them my displeasure. I hope everyone is ready for a fight. We cut over to Chasm and Hallows' Eve, who's having a march with all the demons that have invaded New York. And then you get the Rhino demon that's just like rampaging his way, creating a path, yelling, make way for your king. And then he turns around, makes like a ooh woo face and goes, did you see me? Did I do good? And then immediately gets blasted by Cyclops, who's out of view. And then we cut over to the X-Men that are just standing there posing. Cyclops says, hi, we're your neighbors. Can you keep it down? Chasm responds with, the X-Men! As good a place to start as any. Insidious 6, take him out! And they rush him down going, yes, king. So the X-Men begin the fight with the Insidious 6. We get another group of demons that are just standing there, and one of them notices Madelyne Pryor's just standing there in the distance and says, look, it's her. Another one says, the Fallen Queen. Man, these demons finish each other's sentences for sure. And then both Hallows' Eve and Chasm see this. And Hallows' Eve says, I think she wants her scythe back. And Chasm says, aw, poor baby. And then commands all the demons to take her out. And then we notice that she isn't alone. Someone's behind her. Madelyne starts saying, I'm glad you accepted the invitation to join me. I made many mistakes during the course of this misadventure, but I have to say, you're my favorite. And then we get Bedlam, who charges in there and just cuts a dude off in half. And for those of you who don't know, Bedlam is basically Venom, who's actually not Venom, who is Eddie Brock, the King in Black, who actually, you know what, it'll be too confusing to try to explain. Let me continue explaining this comic. But anyways, this is a different version of Eddie Brock that we're dealing with right now, who's extremely violent. Madelyne introduces him. This is my friend, Eddie Brock. And he says, Bedlam. And then she's like, oh, right, I took his memories away, you see, and much to my surprise, he liked it. Unfortunately for you, it's not the only thing he likes. Have fun, Bedlam. And just sets him off on this, like, rampage, slicing these demons in half. And then we cut back to Chasm, who's talking to a random, I'm assuming commander demon, probably. He says, focus the troops on the Fallen Queen. Show her Limbo's army now follows me. Send everyone. Yes, my lord. And then off frame, we get a voice. Wow, did you get big, didn't you? Big and weird. And it's revealed to be Spider-Man. He's confronting Chasm again. Hallows' Eve responds with, he's not the only one. And he's confused, huh? Of course, directly behind him is Rick Rapp. And Rick Rapp says, who's weird? Is there some weirdo around? And Spider-Man's like, oh, right. What can I say? I was a good influence on one of these demons. And then here we finally start seeing some Hallows Eve action. She's holding a wolf mask and says, sure, I'm just feeling out of place. Least I could do is weird up too. And puts on the mask and instantly turns into a werewolf. Spider-Man's like, Rick Rap, gonna let you take the werewolf. And he responds with, yippee. Honestly, he's a character that's growing on me. Rick Rap and like Hallows Eve, but we barely got much of Hallows Eve since issue like 14. But then again, I haven't been reading Venom and any of the other spin-off titles because I'm not very enthusiastic about it. After Rick Rap's response, Spider-Man goes, probably not the correct response, but I appreciate the attitude. And they begin fighting. We cut to the X-Men that are each fighting an individual Insidious 6 member. Magic's fighting Kraven the Hunter's demon version. This character named Forge is fighting the Rhino demon with a random vine gun that he created. I don't know much about that mutant. As far as I know, he just pops up with the most randomest weapons. Some random other bald mutant, what's his name, Sync. I kind of know what he's all about. I think he's about technology, but in this picture he's also showing a rainbow pattern aura around himself as he's fighting the Scorpion demon, so who knows what he actually does. And then we cut over to the Spider-Man and his amazing friends duo, Iceman and Firestar. They're both fighting the Goblin demon and also Hallows Eve werewolf version. Actually, hold on, now that I'm looking at it, that's not the werewolf version, because she's off fighting Rick Rap. I don't know, some asshole with a laser, I honestly can't tell. Let me look at the first page that has like all the characters listed. Oh, Lizarro. Oh man, I was not thinking that was the lizard at all. That dude looked like a dragon werewolf. Well anyways, the Goblin demon goes, you're hot like the sun, Fire Girl. Thanks for keeping my food warm for me. Iceman's like, I don't get it. Firestar's like, me, I'm his food. Iceman just says, oh, stupid. And we move over to Cyclops and Jean. Jean says, Scott, this is taking too long. They're holding the line. Cyclops is like, agreed, and calls for Magic. And for those non-X-Men followers, Magic is a new character that's with the X-Men at the moment. Not to be confused with actual Magic. To be honest, I don't know much about this character besides what we already know from the story. And if you've been following this entire series that I've been making on this, you probably know as much as I do. Or just in general, if you jumped into the Spider-Man comic run like I am, you know, you just don't know who she is. But we cut over to Magic, who's fighting the Kraven the Hunter demon version. So she opens up these portals on Cyclops' demand. How these Insidious 6 demons start going through them. And unfortunately for that Goblin demon, he's not gonna get any of that Firestar coochie. We cut over to Madelyne Pryor, who's hanging out with Bedlam after just annihilating a ton of demons. And she says, your appetite for destruction is copious, Bedlam, but I trust you're satiated. But he responds with, more. And out of frame you hear a voice, Maddie! And it's one of the X-Men characters. His name is Havoc. And he's like, is this guy bothering you? Bedlam starts maniacally laughing at this. And Madelyne's like, don't laugh at him, he tries. Of course, Bedlam responds with, that's not what I'm laughing at, look. And points to directly behind him. Havoc's like, every demon in Limbo is bearing down on us? And Bedlam's super excited. He's like, haha, yeah. Madelyne goes, you have a strange sense of humor. Out of frame, you hear a voice, crowd cleave formation, X-Men. Move up and form a wedge. And this is where all the X-Men gather up in a group, joining Maddie. And Jean says, we got you, Maddie. She goes, thank you. Of course, your family. Madelyne just makes incredibly awkward face. And so now you have a crowd of just the X-Men characters and Bedlam. And on the other side, you have all the demons of Limbo. And they just storm at each other. We cut over to Rick Rap, who, again, he's fighting Hallows Eve, or werewolf form, to be exact. And mid-punch, he goes, little doggy gonna win best in show. The punched in the face show. Am I doing the jokes right? God, I freaking cringed. This is, again, where I'm like, oh, no, I don't like Rick Rap. Hallows Eve notices that she's struggling a little bit, and then she's like, the Dullard requires a bit more muscle. So she switches masks with the Frankenstein's monster one. And we quickly cut over to Spider-Man and Chasm's fight. Spider-Man goes, you've gone too far, Ben. It's time to stop. Decides it's a good idea to web his scythe. And of course, because now he's webbed up on the scythe, Chasm is easily able to spin him around and yells, "You don't call the shots anymore." At this point, Rekrap's desperately trying to help out Spider-Man. His dialogue is kind of weird, but you could also see the intensity that he's trying to get at. But he goes, "Petey boy, stop spinning my sweet little Spider-Man." Yeah, goofy writing, but like this dude's desperately trying to help out Spider-Man in that fight, but Hallows Eve is already like super muscled up and holding him down, so like he can't do a single thing. As funny as his dialogue is, you know, this dude's trying to help him out. During mid-swing, Chasm just slams Spider-Man into the ground and he goes, "You wouldn't share your life with me, Peter, but now I have your city. Your life has no more use. In the end, I have everything and you have nothing." And a voice out of frame says, "There are some things you can't steal from a man, Ben." And in the next page, we get the Gold Goblin and Kamala Khan coming in to save Spider-Man. And this part, I genuinely laughed out loud when I read it. Chasm turns around and he's like, "Oh, thank God. I heard the dramatic entrance and I was positive it was going to be the Avengers. But it's just two losers I've already dealt with. Phew." Norman hears this and he's like, "Don't love how he's talking about us, Miss Marvel." And she responds with, "Let's shut him up." But very quickly, Hallows Eve gets her own frame where she's about to put on a vampire mask and she says, "Ah, well, I might as well get a meal out of the deal." What does she mean by this? Let's find out after flipping a few more pages. The very next page, we get Madelyne Pryor regaining control of the Limbo army. How does she do this? By pure, I don't give a fuck power. What do I mean by this? Well, she's being overwhelmed by a lot of demons, right? They're all ready to annihilate Madelyne Pryor. But as they start jumping on top of her and building like a mountain of just demons trying to take her out, she just explodes and reveals like, "Oh yeah, this was nothing the whole time," and goes, "That's enough of that." And then the demons that were just standing on the sidelines go, Is that the Goblin Queen?" But she continues talking. She says, "Anyone who believes it is a good scythe that makes me dangerous, come forward, so I may eat your face." And Jean goes, "They're bowing." Magic says, "Hell, I almost took a knee." And confidently Madelyne goes, "There, that's so much better." So it really didn't take much for her to really regain her army back. I guess it was just the sign of power. I guess anyone can do it probably. But, you know, Madelyne Pryor shows off her huge power. But what if Thanos showed up and was like, "Yeah, dude, now I'm the Limbo King." I doubt he wants to do it, but, you know, just questions rise up, my dude. We cut over to the Golden Goblin, who's just tossing bombs at Chasm. And he says, "You made a mistake attacking me, Riley." Chasm goes, "Attacking you? I kicked the shit out of you." Norman flies off and Spider-Man goes, "Never been more happy to see those pumpkin bombs." And Norman in the distance says, "Just bombs, thanks." Spider-Man's like, "Oh, right." We cut over to the fight with Miss Marvel and Rekrap and also Hallows Eve, who now is wearing that vampire mask. Miss Marvel is just punching Hallows Eve with her huge fists, and Rekrap's off in the side going, Miss, your arms are misshapen and stretching all over the place, miss." Miss Marvel's like, "Yep, got it." Rekrap's like, just super excited seeing this. Again, I like him. He's cool. Miss Marvel gives her one last punch and Hallows Eve goes flying. As Chasm's getting bombarded, he's like, "You think you're the only one with friends? All the demons of Limbo are at my command." A voice out of frame goes, "Were." The very next page, it's Cyclops. And he continues, "All the demons of Limbo were at your command." Now we get the reveal of the entire X-Men group also backed up by the demons of Limbo. The X-Men character named Sarge storms in and he's like, "Let me get in here before things get crowded. I just love using this thing." And it's his vine gun that he created and he shoots Chasm with it. As Chasm's being held down by the vine weapon that Sarge created, the three only X-Men that are able to shoot laser beams shoot laser beams at him. Once Chasm lands after getting blasted, all he says is "ow." Hallows Eve lands right next to him, yells "Ben!" and he says, "Looks like I really pissed them off this time, Janin. They're throwing everything they got." She goes, "Then we throw it back. Get up." And he says, "I never wanted you to. I was supposed to protect you. Janin, we're not gonna win this." And they both look at each other in the eyes and she says, "I don't care. I'll never leave you, Ben." And they both start getting up and he says, "I know. I'm sorry, Janin." At this point, Ben knows he's gonna lose. So he uses his scythe to create a portal and send Hallows Eve away so that she doesn't get captured. As she's realized she's getting teleported away, she's yelling, "Ben, no! Don't do this! Don't!" And all he responds with is, "Safe travels." He gets up on his feet again. Now that he's on his feet, he says, "Okay then, where were we?" All the demons of Limbo just simultaneously attack Chasm. And he starts saying, "You think you can hurt me? You think I don't know pain? I was born in the briar patch." And as he's saying all this stuff, he's taking one hit after another. He manages to get one good swing off the scythe to teleport a random character away. Can you guess which character this is? Venom, or actually, Bedlam, to be more precise at this point in the Marvel comics. But Chasm's like, "Go away, all of you," as he's teleporting Bedlam away. Madelyne surprises Chasm and walks up to him and holds onto the scythe. So now they're both holding onto it, looking at each other. She says, "I see you, Ben Reilly. I see your pain, and I see you have to be stopped." The X-Men character Magic shows up out of nowhere and just yanks Chasm out of there, leaving only Madelyne Pryor holding the scythe. And she says, "That's better." Chasm's now back to his normal suit. He's now buffed out. He's no longer Devilman Crybaby. He's just Chasm in his regular suit. And he's on the ground defeated. Spider-Man looks over at him and says, "I'm sorry, Ben. You left us no choice." And Cyclops says, "I need a transport team. We're taking Chasm into custody." Madelyne comes up though and says, "No, I don't think you are." Cyclops is like, "Huh? What?" She continues by saying, "This man carries a wound in his soul. The wound of being forgotten, replaced. It marks him as one of mine. He's a citizen of Limbo." Cyclops is like, "Maddie, he has to answer for what he's done." And she says, "And he will, in a manner of my choosing. I asked you to respect my wishes, Scott. I ask you to see me as I see me, Queen of Limbo, not a nothing person ruling a nowhere place." Spider-Man says, "I want Ben where I can keep an eye on him." And she says, "Anything can be solved with a little diplomacy." Cyclops looks over at her and questions, "What do you have in mind?" And she says, "Why, Scott Summers, I thought you'd never ask." The very next page is just spring, time of the year. We're inside of Ben Reilly's cell in Limbo. It gives off a foresty waterfall vibe, where he's just literally hanging out. A voice off the panel says, "You're not even gonna look at me?" It's revealed to be Spider-Man. "I've been running myself ragged cleaning up your mess. I still haven't found Janin or my demonic superfan, but I still want to know you're okay." Chasm says, "Oh, and you had to come so far to do it? Bravo, real Spider-Man. Bravo." Spider-Man responds with, "I want to help you, even if they've got you trapped in this place, but give me something. Let me know there's still some Ben Reilly in there." Ben Reilly, of course, just stares at Spider-Man and puts on his mask. They're both left there staring at each other in silence. And a voice comes up saying, "Time's up," only to reveal a demon poking his head through a portal saying, "Come on, let's move." Spider-Man goes through the portal only to reveal that, yep, that's Chasm's cell in Limbo. Madelyne says, "I'm sorry, but we do have rules here. Not my idea, but I had to give them something." Spider-Man says, "Seems nice in there." And she responds with, "The demons I asked to advise his cell had confused ideas about what constituted torture. I made sure of it." Spider-Man just says, "You're being very kind." And she says, "Ben fully confessed to leading the attack on New York City. His repentance should be rewarded. I'm through holding grudges." But they reveal Havoc, who's also in the same room. And he says, "Maddie, Scott and Jean are here." And Madelyne says, "Madelyne, when I'm working, Alex." And he says, "Oh, right." She continues by talking to Spider-Man. "I trust you can see yourself home." Spider-Man says, "Yeah, of course. I know the area." Of course, being in Limbo for a bit. Jean and Cyclops are just standing there, and Cyclops says, "Our Krakoan delegates stepped in to move things along, but I'm still surprised the United States went along with it. I'm assuming they're negotiating with something, or they finished negotiating and they're just seeing what the terms are left with." But this is where you get how the story gets somewhat resolved. Madelyne definitely increased her rise in power and forced her way on into Earth. But anyways, she goes, "I simply made it clear that if relations with my kingdom weren't normalized, they risked becoming more abnormal next time." So I guess they took her up on her word and were just like, "Yeah, dude, we don't want things to get worse, so have fun living in New York now." But anyways, Jean says, "Maddie, we want to support you, but are you sure you know what you're doing?" And she says, "For too long, Limbo has held the spirits no one wants to face, the parts of us we condemn to darkness. Nothing heals in darkness. I will open my arms to the rejected ones, the ones who have fallen so far they've been starved of light." Maddie leans out on her balcony and continues talking. "I will lead them out of the cold. I will show them they have a home. No more hiding." And then we get a full page of just the Ben Reilly castle that erupted from Limbo. It's just sitting there in the middle of New York, and random citizens are just walking by. And somehow the US government was just like, yeah, we're gonna let you live there as long as next time you take over New York, it's not as bad. From my understanding, is that right? yeah, that's basically what the terms are, which don't make any sense whatsoever. But anyways, yeah, that's how that comic ends. What do I think about the comic? Well, similar to the previous ones, honestly, they're kind of below average, and so is this one. There were a few things that I personally liked for sure, but just like the previous ones, they just don't get expanded upon too much. The main part I want to talk about is sort of like the defeat that happens with Chasm when Hallows Eve sort of joins up with him again. Like, at this point in the story, they both know that they're gonna lose. Game over. They look at each other in the eyes and they're just like, yeah, dude, it's over. Chasm grabs his scythe and just like teleports her away. This could have been a really impactful moment. You could tell that's what they were trying to do with that. It felt dramatic, but with no substance. I liked it because it was dramatic, but then I also thought it was, overall average as a comic because there was no substance behind it, of course. If they gave me more comics like issue 14, for example, where it was just Janin and Chasm just going off doing things. If they showed like their relationship getting more closer and closer together, believing that they were going to succeed with this plan, and then, they get to the end at this point where they're like, yeah, dude, all this hard work is just going down the toilet. And we both know we're about to lose. That moment could have been really impactful. This could have been a huge comic, because of it. But in the end, it just inevitably ends up being just a dramatic moment, like I said, without really any substance behind it. Which is definitely kind of disappointing. But if you're like me, you're gonna make it enjoyable. To the best extent, I guess. I also liked the very end part where, again, it was kind of dramatic, but with no substance. The very end where Chasm is in his cell in Limbo, and Spider-Man joins up, and, he's like, "Come on, Ben, show me that you're still in there. Show me some resemblance that, there's a good person inside." And of course, they both don't say anything, and he puts on his mask, and this is where, without saying really anything, they're also telling you that, nah, Ben Reilly's just a complete asshole. He's not gonna work with Spider-Man. That was a great moment for Chasm. But again, very dramatic, just no substance. Also, the complete chaos with Bedlam just annihilating demons was also very fun to see. You also don't get really much substance of the X-Men characters themselves. I know they had their own tie-ins to deal with that. This is like the finale, right? Yeah, it's a Spider-Man event, but come on, you still want to read some X-Men character, dialogue. Iceman was in here, but he was incredibly dull. Firestar was in here, but they basically just played her off as like a haha goblin demon horny joke. Or that's at least how I read it. I don't know if if that's how it was meant to be interpreted, but yeah, that's what I got from it. Havoc was in here, but he seemed kind of a simp, really. That's the best way to describe him. I don't even know what he does. I don't know much about his character. I know he's like Cyclops' brother, but aside from that, I really don't know what he does. He seemed like it was just eye candy from just the artwork, really. I don't know, this overall story seemed like a clusterfuck. But anyways, yeah, those were my thoughts on the finale of the Amazing Spider-Man comic event that's going on. I appreciate you guys listening to me talk about this comic book and my overall thoughts about the story. If you guys enjoyed it and you want to hear me talk about more Amazing Spider-Man comic books, then make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.